Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Friday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, ready to talk a ton of ball with you today. Husker volleyball doing their thing last night, late into the evening and early morning as they are set for a national championship. A big-time get for Nebraska football. Decoldest Crawford, up from Louisiana, committing this morning to Nebraska football, and Coach Mickey Joseph. And we'll have some thoughts from Fred Hoiberg on the week that's been. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Can find us on Twitter. Give us a follow at Schmidt_radio, Chris Schmidt, at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. And can always email Chris at HailVarsity.com. Pretty fun rivalry tonight on ESPN Lincoln's airwaves. Boys basketball will tip around 7:30 with Lincoln Southeast hosting Lincoln Southwest. On the show coming up live from Columbus at the Final Four, Jacob Padilla from HailVarsity.com and magazine. We'll check in with the Pride of Fairbury. NBC Sports' Bill Doleman. Parker Gabriel checks in with us to talk some Nebraska football, put a bow on signing week, and the forecast with Clauseborne, the bowl extravaganza. Elijah, you fired up. Did you make it? Well, of course you made it. You're young and you're resilient. I saw the first set. I figured I was over at Coach Brett's place and in St. Nick's house. I figured I was kind of the problem. So I left a crowded watch party as part of the bad luck reason that Nebraska dropped their first set to Pitt. Came back home, watched the end of the Chiefs game, tuned into volleyball, woke up with the mass team huddle on my TV screen, and Nebraska on to another national championship. What'd you do for it last night?
I was just sitting at my house with some friends watching, flipping between Thursday Night Football and Husker volleyball for that first set, and then flipping exclusively over to Husker volleyball towards the end of that second set, I think it was. So watched the full volleyball game, watched the full football game, even caught an episode of Master Chef after the volleyball game. So it was a full night for me.
What were they making? What was the Master Chef making?
They were making donuts. So it went well for some people and really, really terribly. This one poor girl accidentally put salt in her donuts instead of sugar. I was just a complete F up on her part, and it almost got her sent home. She was luckily able to stay in another round, but it was a good episode of Master Chef.
Well, leaving home is Decoldest Crawford, his ceremony this morning at 10 o'clock. And this is big. I know he's a four-star wideout, 6'1", about 190. I know his junior year was not as productive as his his senior year was not as productive as his junior year. He's been committed to Nebraska since 2019, and it really kind of came down to Nebraska and Texas. Florida was in there as well. The coaching change opened the door up, Elijah, with Mickey Joseph making his way to Lincoln. And the kid out of Shreveport's super talented. Watching a little bit of his film, what impressed me is just a couple of things. One, just his ability to go 0 to 60. You hear about it a lot, right? When can a kid, when can a player, when can an athlete achieve top speed? And what you saw with Taylor Martinez at Nebraska, by about step 3 or so on a zone read, Taylor was gone. The thing that with Crawford that's impressive is his ability to change speeds and then accelerate. Saw a few of his kick returns, but mainly the way he's able to just kind of glide and get by defenders with some of his huddle film, and great footwork along the sideline. Wonderful work to locate those 50-50 balls, the back shoulder throw, and then just to go split a double team up the seam and get vertical. out of Green Oaks High School. A number of top programs, Auburn and Baylor, also knocking on that door. Houston and Cincy was in on him. So it's a nice get, but it's a credibility get is how I circle this with Nebraska and maybe what the future holds. You want to be a great program, you get great players. Coach McBride always says, I look like one hell of a smart coach with some great players. Obviously, you got to get them coached up and get them prepped. But Crawford's addition is a win. Bruce Feldman tweeting about it. A lot of the national recruiting analysts tweeting about it. They really like Crawford's game, and they're really impressed. In short order, Mickey Joseph able to make it happen for Nebraska with another standout talent from Louisiana. Nebraska's had good history down there, from Neil Smith to Stan Morgan and Sethan Carter. Now you can maybe kind of hit reset and start this all over again with Mickey Joseph hitting the boot and getting a big-time wideout. Nebraska, we'll get to the quarterback and portal topic here in a little bit, but this is huge for Nebraska, and really it just touches on Mickey's ability to keep relationships, and I think he's going to be really special. He'll do the job coaching him, Elijah, but when it comes to just kind of looking him in the eye, being honest, and telling him why Nebraska's right, this is the first of potentially many for Nebraska to bring some talent up to the north.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what Mickey Joseph can do with Crawford, because from watching his film, what you said, I'm going to echo standing out. He gets from 0 to 60 very fast, and on the flip side of things, he also gets from 60 to 0 very quick. He just seems very quick in and out of his cuts. I think he could use a little bit of development in the weight room to get some more hops and a little bit more top end speed, but who doesn't need that coming from high school to college? There's very few people. He needs a little bit of that, but I'm excited to see what Mickey Joseph can do with him. Who knows how much playing time he'll get early in his career, but I do know he's probably right at the top of the top names in Husker football history already, right?
He is. I mean, you think of the all-name teams with Nebraska football. I mean, Richie Incognito, his last name, despite his size, it was like the big bouncer guy at your favorite bar being nicknamed Tiny, right, with Richie Incognito. Decoldest is absolutely all-name team.
I Am Hip.
I Am Hip for sure is in there. Thunder Collins.
Good one.
Right. I mean, Thunder was he wasn't a big burly back, but Thunder was Thunder, and you know what? The name still resonates. That's kind of where I'm at.
What about, okay, the thing is I think whenever Ndamukong Suh came here, his name was at the top, but then he became so like...
It's just Big Sue.
Yeah, exactly. He almost became bigger than his name, where he couldn't just be like an all-name guy. But he would also, I think you have to include Ndamukong Suh on the all-name team as well.
Right, just because of how unique it is, and then you got the performance to back up the name. Mm-hmm. Let's touch on also Nebraska able to... add a second receiver today. Don't want to forget the transfer. Nebraska hitting the portal again. Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, the wideout from New Mexico State. He's got a lot of lower body strength, and he's such a good little slot guy that can turn and burn. His film's been impressive. So Nebraska getting another guy kind of over the middle or some of those out routes, another flyer with Garcia Castaneda from New Mexico State. That kid out of Colorado, remember that gave the Huskers fits? I think he's playing for Jacksonville. This was 2018, 2019. Shoot.
Laviska Shenault?
Laviska Shenault. I don't think Garcia Castaneda's thighs are as big as Laviska Shenault, but Castaneda's game kind of reminds me of Shenault, just being able to get open and then being physical after the catch.
Yeah, and I don't want to sit here and say I'm overlooking him at all because of the Decoldest news, but that's where I have been centered. I know Steve Merrick's guy. We're going to have to get caught up with him because he's the guy who said, tell me this guy's name again.
Who?
The New Mexico receiver.
Oh, yeah, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda.
That's it, Castaneda. Steve Merrick's the guy who's been in the bandwagon on him, saying Nebraska should be getting him here soon. So maybe next time we talk to Steve, we'll get caught up with him. But I'm with you. He's kind of built in that Laviska Chenault, sure, but even almost Samari Toure, where you're expecting that this isn't a guy that Nebraska is bringing in to be a complete depth guy. You're expecting him to get on the field early, maybe not be a starter, maybe not be a top 3 guy, but a guy who's going to provide you depth pretty immediately and a guy who can come in and kind of do it all, coming off the bench at wide receiver and hopefully provide some experience on special teams as well.
Let's switch gears and get some comments here from John Cook after a long night, a hard-fought victory. John Cook in his postgame last night, wondering what time it is.
Is it Friday yet?
It is 1 a.m.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
It's 1 o'clock in the morning?
Oh, my gosh.
12 o'clock Husker time.
Yeah,
I'd like to know what the Husker Nation's doing right now.
They are cheersing you still. Still, it's midnight Husker time. More from John Cook about some of the feedback he's been receiving. Apparently, John Cook's phone number has been published.
My phone's blown up. I have no idea who these people are, how they get my number, but just how it inspires them and what it means to them, and you know, they love this team. There's a love affair with Nebraska volleyball and a love affair with this team.
He is so right, and part of that is because of his greatness. Part of that is because of their greatness with Husker volleyball. And the other part of this equation is you want something in Husker Nation to cheer about. Last spring and summer it was Will Bolt and obviously Husker volleyball. But it's been a tough go for basketball and football fans. And you've always known about Husker volleyball. I think you've always appreciated Husker volleyball. I just hope you've not taken for granted Husker volleyball. And it's easy to do so because they make it look easy. That's what greatness does. Wonderful column by Brandon Vogel with HailVarsity.com. And, you know, the things that Nebraska does in volleyball, and Coach Cook touched on it last night in his post game about kind of a fourth quarter football feel where you grind them down and you win in the fourth quarter, a la the 95 Orange Bowl against Miami. I think that's where his wheels were turning. But Nebraska volleyball is something that is built on their culture, their execution, their training, their effort. I mean, there's an insane standard where it's one thing to bring in a top recruiting class. It's another to get those freshmen ready for prime time. And you saw a case in point of it against Texas with some freshman phenoms. But what's really cool about John Cook, and he's been doing this at an amazing level, is the ability to assemble said talent and get that talent to perform, right? You've got a perfect union of talent and coaching, and Elijah being coached up to a level in the biggest moments. And voila, you have a title run again for Nebraska volleyball as a 10 seed, as they're looking to be the second 10 seed to take down a national championship. One more thought here from John Cook, and this was the post-game video, the post-game locker room moments after Nebraska downed Pitt 3-1.
So we started off a little shaky today, right? We forgot how to pass. Anyway, resiliency and the grit we've been building all year. You guys hung in there, and like Tyler says, it's war of attrition. And they came out and they played amazing first game. We hung in there, war of attrition, and look at what happened in the end there. Sometimes it's a little ugly out there, and when you get to this point, but you just stay with it, go on the next play. You guys did a masterful job of that. Just your focus on going on the next play and believing that we're going to win the next point. It's contagious. You can feel it. The crowd senses it. You guys are doing an awesome job with that. So great work on that. Super job. And we get another shot at our buddies.
Yeah!
Elijah, do not kid yourself. Despite the way the road has gone against Wisconsin, Nebraska wants the Badgers tomorrow night. They want a chance to deliver a message to Wisconsin. Despite 17 of the last 18 sets going Wisconsin's way, it's title time. Nebraska has them. Wisconsin doesn't.
Yeah, and this is where Nebraska has thrived in the past. They have players in the team who have been there and done that. And guess what? I think Lauren Stivrins had a quote where she said, this team that we have right now is not the same team from when we played Wisconsin a few weeks ago. And when that was perfectly evidenced by that game against Pitt last night. I think Nebraska during the regular season may have turned over and folded over after Pitt came out so hot in the first set, 25-17. Whatever Pitt wanted to do, they could do. But Nebraska didn't turn over. Now that they're in the postseason, they came back with a vengeance in the second set and completely shifted the momentum. And really, they didn't look back after that first set. And that was where I saw change from regular season to postseason in Nebraska, was how they fought back last night. I don't think this team always had that. As opposed to folding over, though, they made sure to come out and play their best volleyball for about the past hour of that one last night, despite how the first 20 minutes went.
They're just confident. They're confident right now. I think a lot of that has to do with being able to stand up and deliver like they did against Texas. They're not inexperienced anymore, the young players. I mean, at this point in the season, although it is their first, and credit to Pitt, I mean, they went after Nebraska's freshman, Lexi Rodriguez, which was not something you usually do, but Nebraska reacted, adjusted, and put it all together. It's a lot of fun watching Husker volleyball perform and appreciate that greatness, their process, the training, and then those results, and should be off the hook in Columbus about 6 tomorrow night. Great to be with you on a Friday. Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery. We'll check in Columbus, get some thoughts on volleyball and Husker basketball. Jacob Padilla next with Hail Varsity Radio. Hello, listener. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And we're back
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Thanks for spending time on a Friday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Let's head to Columbus, on the scene covering Nebraska volleyball in their title run. Does an amazing job with Husker basketball, Husker volleyball, and padding the stats, his column. Jacob Padilla, also two different podcasts to listen to on the Hurrdat Family Media channel. Lincoln Prep's sports, high school coverage, and, of course, Nebraska basketball at Jacob Padilla _, where you find him on Twitter. Jacob, what a scene last night. What a win for Nebraska. What was it like covering that, being courtside for it?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Not going to lie, especially, I mean, I've been lucky. I've been covering this program for 7 years, and they've made the Final Four in 4 of them. But the last 2 years, they kind of bowed out in the regional final round, so they haven't made it back in the last few years. So it was pretty cool being back there in that environment, and seeing the arena full, and just kind of the production they put on for the Final Four, and really try to make it a big deal, as it should be, because the volleyball last night was absolutely phenomenal. That first match between Wisconsin and Louisville went the distance, and there was some really high level volleyball in that match, and then Wisconsin was just able to pull away down the stretch. And then Nebraska to kind of rally from a really rough-looking first set. You kind of thinking, oh, here we go again. Do they just not have it? And they quickly turned around and won the last 3 sets, and here they are with the chance at another national title. But to do that, they're going to have to go through Wisconsin, a team they haven't beat in a long time.
Jacob Padilla is with us, Hail Varsity Radio at Jacob Padilla _ on the scene in Columbus, covering Nebraska and their title run. What were you anticipating after that first set, Jacob? Did you think Nebraska would be able to recover? Were you concerned about Nebraska's response? And ultimately here, why do you think it got sideways early for Nebraska, and then what turned it around for them?
Yeah, no, I wondered how much of it was kind of just first Final Four jitters. They had a lot of freshmen. Obviously, Lexi Rodriguez has been phenomenal this entire season, and she really struggled in that first set in serve receive and passing, and she normally nails in those situations. So that was kind of like that, and then everybody else kind of around her played the same way. So I was definitely thinking, oh, this doesn't look good at the end of the first set. And then they go, and the very first point of the second set, Nebraska lets an overpass drop on their side of the net for a Pittsburgh kill. And then I'm thinking, okay, here we go again. But they settled in from there, and they first they picked up the serving after not really affecting Pitt at all in the first set, and then they adjusted to kind of the way that Pitt was playing. I think Cook said that they tried to kind of prepare them for the tempo and the speed and the way that Pitt was going to play, but once they got out there on the court, the players said it was a little different than kind of seeing it on film. So they kind of had to experience that in person and then adjust on the fly. And once they did that, they were pretty locked in for the last three sets. And that's kind of I think a little bit of the difference in where this team is at now compared to where it was earlier in the season, where there were a few matches where things did go sideways early on and they weren't able to recover from that. And they were able to do that on Thursday night with a lot of different players making a big impact, but kind of Lauren Stivrins down the stretch stepping up and showing why she has had the career that she has in Lincoln.
Jacob, did you get the sense that Pitt was getting frustrated with Nebraska's defense? It just felt like a couple times there were some long rallies where Nebraska was just keeping everything off the floor and Pitt would get impatient and hit into the block or something like that. It just felt like sitting at home. I'm not sure how it felt in the arena, but sitting at home, it felt like Pitt was getting impatient that every single time that they were trying to terminate, Nebraska was just keeping it off the floor.
Yeah, and I think one of Pitt's players said after the match that she didn't think necessarily that Nebraska's defense had a huge impact on the way they played. She thought that they just kind of made mistakes on their side of the net. So that was kind of an interesting answer, but it's what Nebraska's done all season long. They led the Big Ten in hitting percentage. They're ninth nationally in opponent hitting percentage. That is, they're ninth nationally, and I think Kelly Sheffield, Wisconsin's coach, said today that he thinks they're the best defensive team in the country. So that's something that that Nebraska has been able to rely on pretty much every match all season long, outside of a few matches where they just didn't have it that night. But they've been phenomenal on defense, and that's allowed them to get by on those matches where they weren't necessarily hitting at their highest rate. And even last night, they only hit 239. Like Maddie Kubik was at 222. So like volume, but not super efficient. Kayla Caffey had a bunch of errors late that kind of hurt her numbers. But you had Lindsey Krause step up. You had Lauren Stivrins step up. So you got just enough offensively to take advantage of what they're able to do defensively to slow down Pitt.
Jacob Padilla is with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Nebraska volleyball, Wisconsin for the championship. Jacob, what is it about Nebraska, Wisconsin? We hear this war of attrition rallying cry. If Nebraska would have their pick publicly, they'd say, let's just see whoever we see in the championship. But do you think they want Wisconsin? Do you think they want to send a message tomorrow night? I know it's not been good. The matchup's not been good. But can it be different tomorrow night for Nebraska?
Oh, definitely. I think they're kind of excited about the opportunity, kind of just like they were with Texas, where they're not going to necessarily call out Texas heading into the tournament once they found out they were in their regional. But they definitely saw them like, okay, yeah, that's an opportunity here to kind of make up for something that we fell short of in the past. And they took care of business in that match, and now here they are against Wisconsin again. And they've won, 7 in a row or something like that now. But you look at the matches this season, and in the 7 sets, 4 of them were deuce games. Mm-hmm. And Nebraska just lost all of those, basically. And the one match, or the one set that was the most lopsided was the one that Nebraska won, 25-14 in the first set against Wisconsin in Madison in November. So I think they feel like they've got enough to beat Wisconsin if they play at their highest level. They just haven't quite been able to do that yet so far this season. But Lauren Stivrins also said she thinks they're a completely different team than the one that played Wisconsin in November, and light years away from the team that played them earlier in the non-conference.
So, Jacob, if Nebraska is playing at their highest level tomorrow night against Wisconsin, what does that look like? What does Nebraska need to do on the floor to be able to take down the Badgers?
Well, they're going to have to find a way to not let Anna Smrek go off, because that's what happened the first time in Wisconsin. She's a 6'9" true freshman middle blocker. And Nebraska actually did a really good job on Dana Retke in Lincoln. But Smrek kind of came out of nowhere and put up a career-high 12 kills. That's the only match that she had reached double-digit kills in all season long until last night, where she went off for 20 kills and had 17 kills on her first 20 swings in the first 3 sets. So they're going to have to find a way to not let one person get that loose. I think you're going to have to find a way to, yes, you got to send a lot of attention to Retke and Grace Loberg and shut them down first. But you're going to have to do it without kind of exposing your defense to openings where someone like Smrek can go off like that. So they're going to have to be locked in defensively. They're going to have to be on the same page. They're not going to be able to have a first set like they did against Pitt, where they're basically giving away a set and starting out in a hole. They're going to have to make Wisconsin earn everything they're going to get. And then they are going to have some hitters step up. It starts with the serve receive and the passing, to be able to put Nicklin Haynes in a situation where she can kind of pick whoever she wants, as opposed to dictating, kind of force-feeding the pins. But if they're able to do that and they can go up and terminate, kind of like what we saw against Texas, where both freshman pins are really firing, where we saw Krause and Stivrins were having a lot of success against Pitt. That's what it's going to have to be. You're going to have to be locked in defensively, and then you're going to have multiple attackers play at a really high level and be really efficient.
Jacob Padilla is live in Columbus with Hail Varsity, covering Nebraska volleyball. Has done an amazing job all year long. Give him a follow at Jacob Padilla _ and be sure to check out HailVarsity.com for his post-match commentary and analysis. Jacob, just a couple of minutes and we'll let you get out, bud. Husker basketball, Fred Hoiberg has spoken for the first time. His presser earlier this morning, or closer to 11, I should say. But, Fred just kind of touching on some bullet points, didn't really buy into the rumors. They're concerned about Matt Abdel-Massey's health, and that's what the whole leave has been about. And then, K-State comes to town, and Walker's dealing with a knee issue. What did you make of the week and the smoke around the program?
Yeah, it's an interesting time for them to have 7-8 days off between matches or between games, right? Yeah. It's just kind of, they have a chance to distract with anything on the court. It's just been a quiet week, so when that happens, you kind of fill the space with rumors as opposed to focusing on the on-court play and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see. I mean, I guess we'll see if anything comes out of that moving forward, but they got to worry about this game on Sunday first, because that is a big-time game. And if they drop that one, if they're not able to take care of business in that one after having this week off, being able to get healthier. Obviously, the Derek Walker deal is worrisome, because he's been kind of the one rock for you all season long. It's been consistent that you can count on every game. But if he's able to go and they're able to kind of put out the lineup that they want to, minus Wilhelm Breidenbach, and they're able to make some of the adjustments that Hoiberg was talking about, that he missed out on the opportunity to because of the illness, if they can do all that put together and then get a win over another high major team in Kansas State, who is probably, like, if you look at them compared to everybody they're going to play in the Big Ten, they'd be in the bottom 2 or 3, most likely, just based on Kansas State hasn't beat a high major team either. They've been competitive in all those games, but they haven't won any of them. So this is a big opportunity for Nebraska to get a win, and then hopefully carry that over into the Kennesaw State game, and then you can close out the non-conference with a pair of wins and feel a little bit better about yourself, because their first half of Big Ten play is going to be brutal, and they need every bit of confidence, every win under their belt that they can get right now.
Jacob Padilla with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine. Follow him at Jacob Padilla _ Husker Volleyball. He is in Columbus for the Final Four in the title game Saturday. Jacob, best to you this weekend. Thanks for the time today.
Yep, thanks for catching up.
All right, we'll hit on some of what Fred had to say more on the Husker Volleyball showdown with Wisconsin as well.
Hello, listener. This is Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Good to have you in on a Friday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Good stuff from Jacob Padilla on Husker Volleyball live from Columbus. So be sure to check that snippet out. The full interview up on ESPN Lincoln's Twitter feed shortly. ESPNLincoln.com, the on-demand section online. Reminder about buckling up. Coaches make substitutions during the game to get the best player on the field. Getting behind the wheel after drinking also demands a substitution. Sober drivers are the only choice. A DUI costs more than you think. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. So Coach Hoiberg met the media today. It's been an interesting week. We go back to, what was it? It's been a blur, Elijah. Was Trev's was Trev Monday? Was it Tuesday? Monday, Tuesday? I don't know. This week's felt like 6 years. Trev's statement about the NCAA and Fred. Anywho,
I believe that was Tuesday.
It was the day before signing day, right? Okay, thank you. So you have Trev's comment. Now, Fred had his media session today as Nebraska hosts Kansas State. And here is Coach Hoiberg commenting when being asked about the rumors swirling around the program.
You know, I've never really concerned myself with rumors, and, you know, I'll let what Trev said with his statement, speak on behalf of our department. As far as Matt, he came into the office yesterday, and as I've said all along since Matt took his leave, number one focus for me and for him is his health, and to get away from this, to focus on that. He's had a lot of things that you guys can't even imagine has happened to him that he needed to focus on to get himself right as far as from a health standpoint. I'm not going to go into specifics. That's not my job. But Matt has had some serious issues that he needed to take care of in order to get himself healthy for his long run. You know, it's all of us, guys. This is a crazy, stressful business. And when you have somebody more than a coworker, a friend, a lifelong friend, getting healthy is the number one priority. Your health and your family are number one right now. And that's our focus with Matt. But as far as the rumors, guys, I know a lot of you reached out to me, and I'm not going to comment on them. And, I'll let Trevor's statement speak again for the department.
So that was Fred Hoiberg today, and there was no Pink Floyd airing in the background, Elijah, with the funky sound effects. Yeah, did you do that, or was that just that was just part of life? We got to hear. That was it sounded sinister.
That was a little bit of a part of life, but I checked. I checked while it's going out. It sounded a little bit weirder for you and me than it did going out over the air. So I think luckily the nice static of just going out over the air covered up a little bit of that. But it might sound a little bit weird if you're listening via the podcast form.
Yeah, just because it sounded echoey. It's almost like the Halloween music was playing in the background here as Fred's talking about rumors. Last saw it here from Fred when it comes to the last two games, where if you had Nebraska in 30.5, you still didn't cover.
We're over this illness now. and we've had very intense practices, and we just need that to carry over. I know that means nothing when you say you go out and you practice well if it doesn't carry over to the floor. So we changed things up, as I talked about, offensively within our system. We've had about 5 days of work to get it in. There's probably going to be some growing pains through it as we've changed it, but I just felt like I needed more control over what was going on out there on the floor. So, changed some things. A lot of it was designed for Derek, and then Derek had a little bit of a knee injury. He has not been on the floor the last 2 days. Don't think it's anything serious. Hope to get him back on the floor tomorrow to get one last good day of prep before this game on Sunday. But we did change some things up, and I've liked the way it's looked.
Well, good. I mean, for Hoiberg, as far as kind of more control on his part, because it's not like the team has started poorly in their last few games, but, man, they have sure drifted into one-on-one ball and bad shot taking and for sure not much shot making. So he's going to know how to attack about any defense he'll see. Kind of comes down to execution, and Andy Markowski nailed it this week, role acceptance, and if he's barking out the plays or it's a little less laissez-faire, if it's more dictatorship by Fred on offense, that could be good for this team. Let's shift gears and talk about the portal, the quarterback situation, and here's what's going on with that for Nebraska football. Max Johnson is off to A&M. That's Brad Johnson's kid. That was the other quarterback at LSU. The main competition is now gone in Baton Rouge. And, of course, you're going to have Miles Brennan now. He's decided to take his name out of the portal and stay at LSU. So there's that news. But I think there's a real possibility, Elijah, for Nebraska to go get Slovis from USC. I think both sides are pretty interested. And, you kind of bump into fans, you talk with folks, you get emails, and it's kind of a hot, cold review there on Slovis. Initial reaction by Nebraska fans. I look at Slovis as a guy that put up 30 touchdowns, led him to an 8-5 season. He's battled injury issues. He's battled confidence problems. I think Coach Whipple's a guy that can really help a quarterback's confidence. So if those two sides get together, I think it'd be a good thing for Nebraska. That's not to dismiss Smothers. That's not to dismiss Harburg, because I think Harburg's a guy that's got to be really excited about Whipple. And if I'm Whipple, I look at Harburg's measurables and say, man, this is a kid I can really work with, and it could be a good thing. But in the short term, you look at Slovis, and I think you also just wait till after the bowl game, because it's been very, very fluid, and you don't have to pull the trigger right now on Slovis. That said, you don't want to miss out on an opportunity either, but I think a lot of the really high-level quarterback landing spots are getting snatched up. Now, Ole Miss is still open. Chubba Pretty's also the guy that we need to keep our ears open for Nebraska, just because Whipple, before he came to Nebraska, was in home with Chubba. And if I'm Chubba, the only reason I'm listening to Pitt is because of Whipple, right? Well, he's not at Pitt anymore. So there's that. And, of course, Adrian made it official. He is off to Kansas State. So do you have a preference? Would you go with Slovis or would you go with Purdy if you had a pick? And I'm going to make it easy. Just go get both, Elijah. Let's make this thing crazy and wild this spring.
My only problem, I think that's great on paper, but I think you're going to struggle to be able to sell two kids to come transfer here and say, oh, yeah,
I think you're right.
We're bringing in another transfer. Enjoy the competition, because any transfer that comes here is going to be expecting to be 1A. I know they know where they're going to have to compete, but they're going to expect to come in most likely towards the top of the depth chart, if not the top of the depth chart. So really, when I look at raw talent, what they've already done on a football field, Slovis has a special arm, and I think you've got a lot more to work with Slovis, so he'd probably be my top choice.
I'll say this, too, about Slovis. I mean, it was a bleep show after his coach got popped 2 games into last season. There's been success there. There are worse options to go with in the portal than a guy that won a starting job over 5 stars at USC. We'll wind down this first hour. Hail Varsity, we're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
You're not going to hear anybody up here say anything poor about Nebraska. It's not because we don't want to give them bulletin board material. It's because there is a genuine level of respect for what is going on there. It's genuine. And we're excited. And so when you've got one of the premier programs that have been through this over and over and over again, like they have, and they have won so many. I mean, look how many white banners they have in Devaney. We want a white banner. Just the white banners, they're national championship banners in there. And that's something we've been close. We've been painfully close, and that's something that I think is driving everybody we want in to that exclusive club that they are certainly VIPs in.
That is some kindness right there by Kelly Sheffield, head coach of Wisconsin Huskers and Badgers, for all the volleyball marbles tomorrow night on ESPN2. That was, you know what, that was pretty sincere. You got to kind of step back, fold your arms, and nod your head. Hey, that was one hell of a compliment, Elijah. They've won 17 of 18 sets against Nebraska, but, man, the old VIP club, it's something that's a reality for Nebraska. And we'll get Bill Doleman's take on this here. He's been all over Husker volleyball since the Terry Pettit days. But that's one way to kill with kindness, I guess, in a public setting.
Well, yeah, and it's something we've talked about on this show before, and that's that Nebraska has been the gold standard of volleyball for about the past 20 years. And it's like going up against Alabama in a national title game in football. Just as Vogel said yesterday, where last night's matchup kind of felt like Alabama versus Cincinnati, Nebraska is the Alabama of the college volleyball world at the moment, whereas you're not quite sure what's going to happen once you get them into a playoff setting. Whenever Alabama gets in the college football playoff, no one ever wants to bet against them. Even when you look at this year where they lost to Texas A&M, they almost lost to Auburn, still no one's going to want to bet against them in the college football playoff because they're Alabama and they have been there and they've done that. It's the same with Nebraska volleyball. Now that they're in the championship game, no one wants to bet against them because they have been here and they have done that, and Wisconsin can't say the same.
You're right on. Alabama football aspires to be Husker volleyball, right? Pretty cool tweet here from Terry Pettit earlier today. This 2021 version of Nebraska volleyball is a great example of grit. Grit is a combination of passion and perseverance. It doesn't happen by accident. It is choosing to adjust to adversity while embracing the goal of getting better rather than trying to be perfect. Coach Cook hit on that in his post-game comments about if it didn't go well for a certain point, get amnesia, move on, go get the next point, and don't let a mistake rattle you.
In the words of Ted Lasso, be a goldfish.
Yeah. The old goldfish call works out well, and a lot of belief, a lot of joy for Nebraska fans as they are all in on volleyball. They're proud of this volleyball squad, this program, this dynasty, and it could be another example, another banner, and more VIP club for Nebraska tomorrow night. Bill Doleman's on the way. Parker Gabriel next hour. Clauseborne and the bowl forecast comes up in hour 2. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/ podcast. Subscribe, promo code GBR.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, who gets to walk with that graduation gown tomorrow. Thumbs up to him. Coming up, Parker Gabriel and Clauseborne. He's imaginary. He wears red. The bowl forecast on the way around 5:40. We welcome in the pride of Fairbury, NBC Sports, and longtime media man covering Nebraska athletics, Bill Doleman, with us at Bill Doleman on Twitter. Billy D, you survived the wind speeds out there in Mile High Country?
Yeah, I was a little worried about the folks in Nebraska because I thought that it was entirely possible that with the winds blowing from west to east, that the winds from the smoke from downtown Colorado might find its way in Nebraska, and people in Nebraska might overrun the stores looking for Doritos. But I guess maybe that didn't happen. It's probably happened in Burwell or something.
The supply chain shortage and weed smoke from Denver and the lack of Funyuns in town is no accident.
I'm telling you, people in Denver were kind of walking around sober all day. So anyway.
Well, hey, we'll get to some thoughts here on Nebraska volleyball and your takeaway with the week that has been for Nebraska basketball in a moment. But you're a big-time wait-and-see guy with recruits. You've been a part of the Nebraska athletic department, Bill, in your time in Lincoln when it came to recruiting, just as far as, your job is to pick up a recruit or show them around. I mean, you've been a part of it with the university. And kind of get your reaction here on Decoldest Crawford, a wideout from Shreveport, Mickey Joseph delivering a pretty big-time get that he has a chance to coach up and make really good. This kid's pretty talented. Speak, if you can, to your reaction and impression of Mickey Joseph long-term, and what do you think of his short-term turnaround here, getting a kid he's known since 2019 to find his way to Lincoln?
Well, I think we all knew, from having, known Mickey years ago and seeing what he's done in his entire career and the willingness for Mickey to put in the time, the hard time of coaching at all levels. I mean, starting at Omaha North or Northwest and Wayne State and every college in Louisiana, Grambling, Louisiana Tech, and working his way up, you just know that guy has a work ethic to get to where he is today. And so you really, really have to respect the grind that Mickey has put in to get to where he is in his career. And he has a lot of credibility, and the relationships with the coaches down, not just in Louisiana, but I would assume all throughout the Southeast and probably into Texas, that this is a guy that is respected by high school coaches, and they're willing to let him come in and talk to their kids and willing to steer them to wherever Mickey Joseph is. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago when Brian Kelly was dropping his fake Massachusetts, Louisiana accent. That Brian Kelly's going to have to go into Louisiana and start selling guys on who he is as a person, not just as a football coach. And I firmly believe that, that act at that basketball game was a setback. People trust Mickey Joseph down south, and I think that's one of the reasons why he's a valuable get for Nebraska, not just because of his Nebraska ties, but the relationships that he has built, the respect that he has earned to get to where he is. And now for Mickey to go to Nebraska, those coaches down there are going to say, son, I think you need to take a look at Nebraska because we trust Mickey and what he has done. So I think, it's paid off. And I liked what Mickey said, in his comments. I'm not sure if it was about, Decoldest or somebody else, but he said, look, all the top programs have every building. They all have great locker rooms. They all have this. They all have all the bells, whistles, and toys. But what most of those programs don't have is Nebraskans. They don't have the culture. They don't have the passion. They don't have the friendliness, the character that, makes Nebraska so special, that makes it the good life. It's not for everybody, but it's for people who want to, be in a place that's going to make them happy for 4 years or 40 years. And I think Mickey understood that when he came to Nebraska. He probably learned it over the time and has seen it from afar. So I think it's an easy sell for him to the guys down there to say, trust me, I've been here. You're going to like it here. Follow me here, and they have.
Bill Doleman's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Bill, let's switch gears and get your takeaway on Trev's statement Tuesday on Fred Hoiberg. Are there red tea leaves to read through it, or do you just kind of take it and say, okay, there's nothing to see here? A lot of smoke around the Nebraska basketball program. I don't bring it up to just keep shoveling dirt or stir anything up, but I'd love, from a media savviness perspective, what'd you read into that, or did you read anything into what Trev said?
Well, I think, Trev's been pretty upfront about things, with the stuff with Scott back in, what was it, September or October, about potential violations with the Nebraska football program. And to come out and get out in front of this with a statement, I respect him for saying, all right, we're going to take this head on. We're going to address it. What's going on there? Maybe there's something. I think Nebraska is a victim when it comes to college basketball as opposed to college football. Of Nebraska can, be pushed out into the front, where some of the other blue bloods, as I've been talking about for 4 or 5 years now, can be protected by time for all of the other, their indiscretions and their outright, problems with the NCAA. Kansas, has anybody talked about Kansas other than us? Duke, North Carolina's, higher education scandal, that was systemic. Arizona finally got rid of Sean Miller, but Nebraska doesn't have the blue blood status when it comes. So if there might be a little bit of smoke, well, let's jump on that and we'll talk about that. Meanwhile, we'll just let the other thing play out and maybe die over time. So I think that's unfortunate. But I respect Trev for getting out there. I'm sure that when Trev took the job, nobody's going to take a job like that without, taking a look at every team and every program, that he may oversee. And so if there was something there in the summer to be concerned about, he probably started looking. Same with football, same with basketball, same with rifle, same with, volleyball. And I'm sure the John Cook stuff was probably less than 5 minutes to take a look at, what's going on with that program. But, he's out front and he's saying, here's the situation. And right now they're saying there's nothing going on right now. And I think that's, where we leave it.
Do you think there is something down the pike, or is just folks with time on their hands and you know how this town can talk?
Well, that's partly true. Nebraska or Lincoln is a big, small town. And can you read between the lines? Yeah, maybe. There's enough to read between the lines for him to come out and make a statement. And if you want to parse words like some will, then you can. We're in an era in this transition from you can't do this to the NIL. And maybe there's some things that, fell into a gray area that a year ago at this time you absolutely could not do, to where NIL's coming in July. Let's get to July, and then we'll take advantage of the new rules. So is there a gray area that, Nebraska fell into? That's entirely possible. Look at the Deion Sanders signing the kid out of Florida, and everybody's up in arms that, somehow, some way this kid's getting some money. Well, hell yeah, he is. A Heisman Trophy winner made $1 million last year. Jimbo Fisher on a radio show was laughing when he said, yeah, guys are getting theirs. They have been for years. Now you can do it legally. So the cat's out of the bag, right?
Yeah.
And look who has the new #1 recruiting class in the country this year. Texas A&M, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe there were some things that they're looking into that fell into questionable practices before the NIL. I don't know. But as just somebody who looks at it from, reading between the lines, and yeah, I could see where they may say, well, how did we get a 5-star kid to Nebraska? And I'm not saying it's McGowan's. I'm just saying that, maybe they're going, wait a minute, what happened here? And they go, oh, well, yeah, that's right. The new rules came in. Everything's okay. Have at it, Kansas, Arizona, Duke, Oklahoma State, everybody else, USC, Creighton.
Bill Doleman's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, at Bill Doleman on Twitter. Bill, to volleyball we go. Nebraska, another chance for another title against a familiar foe. What has stuck out to you about Coach Cook with this team in particular?
Patience, for one. I think this is one of the best coaching jobs that he has done, and he's had some tough decisions to make. You bring back, an All-American, Lexi Sun, and you give her every opportunity, but you've also brought in the best high school player in the country. And, yeah, Lexi's got experience on her, but, Allie Batenhorst has a ton of experience, played at the World Juniors last summer. Lindsey Krause and Rodriguez is the freshman of the year. People keep overlooking her, which is somewhat stunning. But, for Nebraska to go through that lull in the middle of the season where he's trying to figure out what the right combination is and to make a tough decision with Lexi Sun and some of the others in terms of where they're going to play, and then to guide that ship to where it has gone. I think when the bracket came out, you saw Nebraska as the number 10 seed. I think anybody who follows that program pretty closely or follows college volleyball intimately is going, that's about the best 10 seed that's ever been in that tournament, because Nebraska's playing really well right now. Everybody's kind of settled into that role. And it's not just John. His staff has done a tremendous job. But, to guide that, you could just tell when they were going through that 3-match losing streak that they're tweaking something right now, that they need to find the right combination. And then, they're able to get through it, get everybody bought in. Credit Lexi Sun for being, appears to be a very good teammate and cheerleader for her, for their younger teammates. I think it's been really remarkable. And I thought that win over Texas, in all the years that I've been watching Nebraska volleyball, really, since the early 1980s, when I was in the SID office as a student, to go into games and matches and then calling them with the rise of Nebraska volleyball. That Texas match was one of the best matches I have ever seen outside of the Devaney Center or the Coliseum. And, it's Texas. People forget about this, but it was a match against Texas in 1988 that I firmly believe was the night that Nebraska volleyball exploded, because they beat Texas in a five-set thriller on Nebraska ETV, like 4 hours long. It was epic, and that's when Nebraska volleyball took off. I was fortunate to have matches on television that I got to call, and that match the other night reminded me, look at this. This is what reminded me of what happened at the Coliseum in '88, and then to go down to Texas and do that to them on their floor in 2021. Just spectacular memories coming to mind for Terry Pettit and John Cook and everybody involved. I mean, John said it was one of the biggest matches ever, and from afar, I agree.
Bill, I've seen people on Twitter, both Nebraska fans and rivals alike, saying Nebraska's just a volleyball school now. What's your take on that, and do you think it's true?
Fine. Fine, I'm good with that. Let's take some pride in the way Nebraska athletics has championed women's sports over the years. And I also think back of the greatness of Bob Devaney. You take a look at a really big picture of this. Bob Devaney was the athletic director from like 67 to 92 or 93. And, and they were so far ahead of other programs in embracing women's sports. Jay Davis is a women's athletic director, Barb Hibner. But, Bob hired Terry Pettit. Bob, I think, hired Rhonda Revelle in 92 or 93. Gary Pepin with, men's and women's track and field. And so they had great coaches way back when, and the foresight to say, this is really important. Let's get some support for Nebraska women's athletics. Angela Beck was hired with Nebraska women's basketball. So, fine, if we're a volleyball school, great, but we're also great in softball and basketball, and Bill Byrne did great in hiring in coaches too. But fine, if that's what we're recognized for is excellence in promoting women's sports, fine with me.
Bill Doleman's with us, Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, what about Bill Straub and bowling, huh?
Bowling championships. Before we say goodbye, about a minute here, a thought on tomorrow night. Does Nebraska get it done against Wisconsin?
I don't know. Wisconsin sure does seem like, that team of destiny with all the players that have come back, and they've got that formidable front line, and they just seem like the script has been written for them to get to where they are and to take that next step. But that next step is a really, really big one. There could be a lot of pressure on them early, and if Nebraska goes in not feeling the pressure and withstands Wisconsin like they did, Pittsburgh early and what was it, Texas in that third set down there, Nebraska's got a lot of resiliency to withstand storms. But I want Nebraska to win everything, but I think Wisconsin has to be the favorite, but it won't surprise me if that last step for Wisconsin to take is just a little bit too much and they stumble and Nebraska takes advantage and wins it.
Another banner, that VIP club. Bill, about 15 seconds, bud. Can we catch you on the Olympic Channel this weekend?
We've got biathlon at Le Grand Bornand in France. 70,000 fans a day watching biathlon along the trails of southeast France, and it is spectacular. Biathlon is a great sport. It's fun to watch. I just wish they had it in Nebraska, but that's where we'll be all weekend.
Bill Doleman, NBC Sports. Bill, we'll talk next week, bud.
All right, go be good.
Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Let's talk some Husker football. Parker Gabriel with us from the Lincoln Journal-Star and Husker Extra PGs, where you follow him on Twitter. Parker, crazy week, busy week. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It has been a busy week, that's for sure.
So the news of the day this morning, you have Decoldest Crawford, wideout from Louisiana, committing to Nebraska, three-star prospect, great relationship with Mickey Joseph, and once you had the coaching change happen at LSU, Mickey right on the spot. Let's talk about the player with Crawford real quick, Parker. What are some of your impressions of this get for Nebraska?
Yeah, it's a good one, obviously, for a lot of reasons. The biggest is just that he's a talented player. He's bigger. Yeah, I talked to his head coach, Chad Lewis, at Green Oaks down in Shreveport, Louisiana. And, Lewis just got there recently to Green Oaks and said that the thing that jumped out to him was that he was every bit the athlete that he'd been made out to be. But then he also said the thing that surprised him was that he's bigger and more physical than he thought was going to get in terms of, a guy everybody knows of because of his name. He burst onto the scene when he was a sophomore, and he committed to LSU during his sophomore season in high school. And so for a guy that has that kind of profile and that kind of, pedigree, he just said he works hard, he plays hard, he's bigger and stronger than you might think he is, and, he can go get the ball. And then on top of that, it's important for Nebraska because they got a quick win in Louisiana with Mickey Joseph down there, and he's a guy that a lot of kids in Louisiana know and follow and all of that. And so not to say that it's just going to open the spigot wide open from the Bayou to Lincoln, but it's certainly, you can't say it's anything but a pretty good start in that regard for Mickey Joseph in Nebraska.
Parker Gabriel with us on Hail Varsity Radio, Lincoln Journal-Star at Husker Extra PG on Twitter. I think you nailed it with the win factor here. You immediately get a talented prospect out of Louisiana. The one thing that Nebraska got a lot of things with Mickey Joseph, Parker, but credibility with some pretty high-profile recruits is 1 or 1A on my list on top of just how good a coach Mickey is. What were some of your impressions of Mickey with the round table? What stuck out to you about Coach Joseph?
Credibility with players, Schmidt, but also credibility with high school coaches and trainers down there, too. I mean, I think that's every bit as important. You know, Chad Lewis, the head coach at Green Oaks, he said people down there are upset that he doesn't work in Louisiana anymore, but not at Mickey, obviously.
Sure.
In general, and he said not only will I always tell him if I have a player, but I'll always tell him if I know of a player that I think can help him. And that's just kind of, you know, he's from New Orleans. It's his home state, and it's an area where, you know, they're not going to – Nebraska is not likely to do what LSU did, where every blue-chip receiver seemingly or player from the state ends up at Nebraska. Of course, that's not going to happen because LSU is still there and you're in the middle of SEC country. But the ability to get in the conversation even and find the guys that are maybe looking for something different, that do want to do something different, like that means a lot. And I thought it was interesting, you know, with Mickey, really sort of in that roundtable, like you said, he sort of laid out his process. I thought that was one of the most interesting things he said was when he talked about how he watches his guys cut up from Friday night games on Saturday morning before his college team plays and coaches them, calls them or texts them and says, hey, when you run a slant, you know, not so much football, you got to do this. And he's like, you got to start coaching them before they ever commit to you and build a real relationship with them, not just a recruiting relationship. And it's a little thing, but it goes to show you, I mean, that's how the best in the business do it, you know, and Mickey's got a long track record of being one of the best in the business.
The thing that I thought was really sincere from Mickey is the well-being aspect when it comes to relationship building, Parker. He's going to tell kids straight, look, there's some good folks in our home state and there's some bad dudes, just like everywhere. Why not maybe move away from home and experience a different environment that's a pretty good spot to be at? I mean, that'll connect with some parents. That'll connect with some of the kids that maybe are a little bit more mature, but it'll give them something, Parker, to think about, you know, big picture, long term, you know, for the rest of their life.
Yeah, no doubt. I was going to tell Mickey, like, I wasn't over there when he said there. He probably shouldn't leave his keys in his car at this point.
Especially
besides
it's
that,
20 degrees.
I mean, you know, you're right, and that's one thing that that has been part of the pitch for Nebraska and for Big Ten schools in general, is that it is something different. And, you know, Scott Frost said it all through the pandemic and before that this is a great, you know, it's a great place. It's a family-oriented place. It feels like a small town, even though part of the recruiting pitch is that it's not. It's a city that feels like a small town, and there's opportunity in all of that. And I think, too, you know, it's interesting, like Decoldest Crawford, while he was talking with reporters after he signed this morning, one of the things he said was that he likes the fact that it's his own path and that he's doing something different and that it's a challenge. You know, it's not easy, and Mickey talked about this on Wednesday, too. It's not easy to come from Louisiana to Lincoln. It's not easy to come from Florida to Lincoln. It's not easy to come from California to Lincoln. But there's something to be said for the growth and learning that comes along with that, as long as you have the support system in place while you're here, where when you get homesick or when you're thinking about maybe going home or whatever, which is inevitably going to happen at some point, that the support system's in place to say, hey, we've got you and all of that. And that's one thing that I think Mickey takes a lot of pride in because he's lived it. You know, he talked about how he felt that when he came to Nebraska from New Orleans out of high school. And guys, transfer, people leave. Happens, part of college athletics, as we've seen, obviously. I think when you have confidence in your relationship with guys, you have a much better chance of making it stick and making it work with guys that aren't from around here.
Parker, let's hit some portal topics, and you've got Brennan that is elected to compete for the starting job at LSU. You have Max Johnson that's headed to A&M. A name that's kind of been on the radar since earlier this week is Slovis out of USC. You have the Arizona connection with Coach Whipple. A lot of it seems like every quarterback's out of Scottsdale, which would be awesome to be in Scottsdale right now. But, you know, how do you feel about Nebraska's chances? And honestly, do you think Slovis could be a fit for what Whipple wants to do? I guess, are there other quarterbacks out there that Nebraska may wait on post-bowl versus if they can pull the trigger on a guy like Slovis? And I'm not saying they can or they can't, but, do you be patient, or do you like the fact that Slovis does have quite a bit of experience? Some of it was good, and then, of course, this year was not.
Yeah, that's a big-time decision. That's why they get paid the big bucks decision. If they can get Keaton Slovis in the coming days versus waiting to see what happens. I mean, it would take some gumption, especially, it's the old one in the hand is worth two in the bush. I think he's a good player. He's obviously got talent. He threw 30 touchdowns his first year as a starter at USC. You can make excuses for anything, right? Mm-hmm. And the production is what it is. I think everyone at USC was put in a tough spot this year when Helton was fired early in the season. That's not a recipe for cohesiveness and for success. And obviously they had a bad year and his numbers weren't great. If you can get a guy with that, level of talent, that's a guy who he's been around the block. He's played a lot of football. That you're probably talking about not quite as steep a learning curve, or maybe a better ability to handle a steep learning curve than if you end up with a young guy. But, it's gonna be an open competition too. Let's not count Logan Smothers and Heinrich Harburg out before there's even a transfer quarterback in the picture. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. I think that they probably want a guy in the fold as quickly as possible. It's got to be the right one, but I do think time is of the essence because I think it's important that Nebraska. I know Frost said on Wednesday, he said maybe we'll get one if it's the right guy, maybe we won't, and he played it like he wasn't concerned if they didn't end up with one. I think they need one. I think they need a guy just for numbers' sake. And if you're going to take one, you want to get the best guy you can get. And so I tend to think that it's the sooner the better for Nebraska in terms of figuring that out.
Did you walk away listening and spending some time around Coach Whipple thinking, all right, this was a pretty just quick, first impression. This is a pretty money hire. I walked away going, man, this guy's kind of an old pro, and it's fun to listen to him. Obviously, he needs to mesh everything, O-line, running game, his passing game, and then what Frost wants to do. But, if I'm a Nebraska fan, I feel pretty confident in this guy's history and track record, and it seems like he's pretty easy to work with, and it sounds like his players loved him.
Yeah, and I think so I agree with all of that, and then I think the thing that stuck out to me maybe the most, and I'm writing about this weekend in the Journal-Star, is, it sounded, listening to him, like this is a big undertaking, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's a new coaching staff, there's going to be a new quarterback, no matter who it is. New ideas, you're going to tweak the system, Scott's going to give up play calling, all of this stuff. Like, it is a large amount of earth to move to hit the ground running. And one of the things that jumped out to me, and then I went and, sort of looked into it a little more, is like, Whipple, he's been a coach for 40 years. He's changed jobs. He's gone from one school to another 14 times in his career. And 11 of those times, it was the job he was taking was either a coordinator or a head coaching job. Like, he's done this a lot of times before in terms of getting somewhere, putting something in place, figuring out who your guys are, and trying to hit the ground running. And he talked about going from being the head coach at UMass to changing terminology entirely and having to coach Ben Roethlisberger, who just got drafted and was a rookie, or he was with the Eagles, and then he got hired as the OC at Miami, but it didn't get done until late January because the Eagles went to the NFC Championship game. And he said what he said, and I didn't verify this exactly, but the point stands is like from the time he signed with Miami to the time they began spring ball was like 8 days is what he said. So, like, he's been in this situation a lot of times in terms of getting a system in place and sort of hitting the ground running. And that is so that's really important, I think, before you get into the guy can coach. He had a Heisman Trophy finalist this year and all of that. Like, that's all great. But I think it probably gave Scott Frost a lot of comfort that Whipple's done this before, a heavy lift, the overhaul, the marrying of systems and all of that. Like, this is old hat to him, and that's good news. Doesn't guarantee success, obviously, but I think that's probably a big part of the allure for Scott at this point.
Parker Gabriel, Lincoln Journal-Star, at Husker Extra PG on Twitter. Parker, if we don't get caught up, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you and your fam. Thanks for jumping on today.
Yeah, thanks. Same to you and everybody out there.
Like what you hear, high-quality radio and podcast is part of what we do at Hail Varsity. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Back with you at Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. And it is that time, and I think it's been about 10 years since the emergence around this time of year of the infamous and imaginary Clauseborne. He wears red, he cheers for Nebraska, and we've done the Friday forecast for quite a while. Claus, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. How you doing?
Well, right now, I am about the coldest I have ever been, and I will see myself out.
There we go. Drum roll, please. Tip your waiter. Try the veal. All that good stuff. Big day for Nebraska, getting a nice wide receiver from Louisiana, Claus. And I know you follow recruiting. Good work. You can stay cold, right, and do it that way. Let's get into the forecast, and we got a lot of games to get through as Nebraska, again, not in the postseason, but that doesn't mean we can't make picks to surely go wrong. We'll start off with UAB and BYU. I've not seen any opt-out options for BYU yet. I know UAB's had a nice season. BYU's kept their coach, and if they would have been allowed, they probably would have been crowned Pac-12 champs. They beat everybody. I think BYU handles this pretty emphatically. 41-13, the win in the cover. Elijah?
Well, to be 100% completely truthful here, I don't think I watched a single UAB game this year. I did watch a few BYU games, definitely not the team they were last year, but they're still a pretty good football team. Simply for the fact that I don't know, I'm going to go for chaos, and I'm going to go for UAB to cover against BYU.
Keep drinking, son. Love it. Claus, what do you say here, BYU or UAB?
Well, I think it's pretty interesting that BYU is giving 6.5 points because it usually takes 6.5 seconds for me to shut the door when they show up on my front porch on Saturday mornings. I'll take the Cougars in this one. In fact, I think they ought to probably find a way to bet on themselves and use the winnings to buy some extra sleeves for those dress shirts they're always wearing. BYU 31 and UAB 17.
Oh, man. This is the Revenge Bowl. Pirate went off earlier this week on Texas Tech. He's still pissed about the $900,000 they still owe him. He went lawsuit. Craig James Puke Kid, the alleged closet. And I think Mississippi State's going to open a can of whoop just out of revenge. 8.5's too low of a number. I think the Pirate, assuming there's no brutal opt-outs, he hates opt-outs as well. Leach hammers his former team 35-21. I know Tech can score some points. Mississippi State's a pretty good ball club, and they'll find their way to 8 wins this year. I like the Pirate against his former team. Give me Mississippi State the win and cover. Elijah.
Yeah, Mississippi State is a good football team, and they've only been getting better as the year goes on. You're now giving them, 3 weeks of extra practice to be able to get ready for this game. I'll take Mississippi State 38, Texas Tech 28, a win and cover for Mississippi State.
Claus, you like Mississippi State or Texas Tech here, -8.5?
Well, let's put it this way. If I were a Texas Tech fan, instead of watching this game, I might just lock myself in a dark closet for 3 or 4 hours, get the same amount of joy as I would watching this one. Mississippi State 56, Texas Tech 17.
Big-time win by Mississippi State. This is intriguing. I know they've under-delivered. Both teams really have under-delivered this year based on their preseason prognostications. Clemson's gotten better, and their air-quote down year is still going to probably be a 10-3 season. They have just way more talent than Iowa State. Iowa State's a good football team, but they didn't really quite turn the corner after that landmark victory they had mid-season over Texas. And I know Texas wasn't great, but you know what? Why is Iowa State favored here? -1.5. I just don't get it. It's kind of a pick 'em ball game. I'm going to go with talent over heart, even though it is kind of weird with both coordinators gone. For Clemson. I think Clemson wins this thing. I think Iowa State just doesn't have enough juice. And give me Clemson 35, Iowa State 31, the win in the cover, a higher scoring ball game. The Tigers win over Matt Campbell. Elijah?
Yeah, I'm going to go opposite you here. I think Iowa State played in a more difficult conference in the Big 12 this season. The ACC just wasn't all that great this year. Clemson wasn't all that great this year. I think Iowa State has had some tougher tests on their schedule, so I'm going to take Iowa State here to win in a close game, 28-24. The Cyclones get a win and cover over Clemson.
Claus, you going with the Cyclones, bud, or you going with Clemson?
Well, I think it's interesting that the game is sponsored by Cheez-It because Cheez-It's, much like Matt Campbell's coaching resume, looks good. People seem to like it, but really a lot of empty calories. I'll take Clemson in this one, 31, and Iowa State 21.
Clemson a 10-point win. The Battle of OUs, it wasn't that long ago. These were two teams trading blows on a ABC Saturday night for the non-conference games in the mid-2000s. Oregon right now in some transition with an interim coach, as is Oklahoma before Venables gets there. The Sooners -4.5. Oregon, I think, can get this done. I think Oklahoma's still reeling from Riley. I like the Oregon outright win, even with the points, but give me Oregon 31, Oklahoma 27. I like Oregon in this one. Elijah.
I'm going to disagree with you here. Oklahoma is simply better along the lines of scrimmage. I think that's what's going to get them the victory. I think they're going to be able to run the ball well, and I think they're going to be able to get after Oregon rushing the passer. So give me the Sooners to win big, 38-21 over Oregon.
Claus, what do you like here, Oregon or OU?
Well, speaking of bowl sponsorships, I think this game probably ought to be sponsored by Indeed, since both schools seem to always have coaches brushing up on their resumes. I think Oklahoma is not nearly the team that we thought they were, and I think Oregon is probably trying to wash the taste of that Pac-12 championship game out of their mouth. So I'll take Oregon in this one, 28, and Oklahoma 21.
We will save the Bama, Cincy, Georgia, Michigan showdown here for a little bit later. Quickly, Penn State, Arkansas. Penn State just has been underwhelming this year. I like Arkansas on the lines of scrimmage. Penn State's favored. I'll take the points, and I'll take an Arkansas win outright, 31-28. Elijah.
Yeah, I'm with you, too. I'm going to go just a little bit lower scoring, but I'm going to take Arkansas outright as well, 28-24 for the same reasons you listed.
Claus, you like Arkansas or Penn State?
Listen, there's a lot of material between squealing like a pig Forby and Penn State, but I'm going to be the bigger man. And, oh, goodness, I just thought of another joke. I better just give you my score before I get us canceled. 28-24, Arkansas.
We'll do that ourselves, Claus, but love your thoughts anyway. We'll wind down the forecast here. Still to come, Oklahoma State, Notre Dame, Iowa, Kentucky, Michigan, Georgia. And, of course, Bama, Cincy, the bowl forecast with Clauseborne as we wind down a Friday with Hail Varsity Radio.
Like what you hear? High-quality radio and podcasts are just part of what we do at Hail Varsity. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor, and I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, be sure to check the podcast out, Hail Varsity Radio, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and get caught up with us. Good, bad, or ugly. We'll take the review. Thanks for the feedback. And back tomorrow morning with the weekend edition, 7 to 9 a.m. Myself, Mark Cranack. Let's continue the forecast with Clauseborne, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Thanks for hanging out on a Friday with us. As we head to Oklahoma State, Notre Dame, Fiesta Bowl time. Irish without a coach, but I think the team really loves their new coach, the defensive coordinator. Okie State, man, what could have been, but they always seem to stumble. Do they end up with a 12-win season? I like this Oklahoma State defense, and I think they get it handled at noon on New Year's Day. Give me the Cowboys the win, and it's -2 Notre Dame. But Oklahoma State 24, Notre Dame 21. Elijah.
I don't think Oklahoma State has enough offense. This Notre Dame team, in my opinion, was the best team to be left out of the college football playoff, with their only loss this season being to a playoff team in Cincinnati. So I'll take Notre Dame to win this one and cover. I think they win by about a touchdown. Give me Notre Dame 27, Oklahoma State 20.
Claus, you like the Cowboys or the Irish?
Well, it's funny because I have a little bit of a connection to both teams. See, I drive through Oklahoma a lot, and I'm always praying to God that it doesn't last too long. So really hard for me to pick, but I suppose I'll go with Oklahoma State on account of their defense, 21, and Notre Dame 17.
Iowa and Kentucky. Kentucky a good season, 9-3. Iowa at 10-3. Iowa got just blasted. I like Kentucky's offense. I like their athleticism, and I like Kentucky's defense. So this -3 is pretty low. Give me the Bluegrass State over the other white meat, 28 to 17. An impressive Kentucky win. Elijah.
Yeah, this Iowa team is in free fall. They needed a comedy of errors from Nebraska to beat Nebraska, and then they got
they got it.
They got the brakes beat off of them against Michigan. I really don't think this Iowa team is good enough to even get close to covering 3 points against Kentucky. Kentucky's coming from the SEC. They're a good team this year. Give me Kentucky 35, Iowa 10.
Claus, you going with Iowa or Kentucky?
Well, I just get the feeling that Kentucky could take the entire Bourbon Trail tour themselves, sample everything, and still not be able to make the mistakes that we did to allow Iowa to win. So I'm going to take Kentucky in this one, 31, and Iowa 14.
On to the semifinal. Give me Bama 42-28, the win and cover for Roll Tide. Elijah?
Upset of the year. Cincinnati gets it done at 35-31 over Bama. They're on to the college football playoff national championship game.
My goodness. Claus, what do you got?
Does Elijah realize that it's not the Bengals that Bama is playing, it's the Bearcats? There's no way. I did often wonder why Luke Fickell would be in such a hurry to get out of Ohio State when he was an assistant for Herb and go take a job like Cincinnati, but I guess that question was answered this week. I like Luke, don't like his team. I think Alabama wins going away 38 and Cincinnati 21.
Georgia, Michigan minus, what do I got here? 8? -8. I want those points, and I like Michigan. I think Michigan wins outright. Run game, defense, And there you go. Just enough. Low scoring, 24-21 Michigan. Elijah?
I think Jordan Davis is the best run stuffer in football. He's going to slow down Michigan's run game. Georgia gets a 14-point win, 31-17.
Claus, let's wrap it up for the new year, brother. What do you like your Georgia-Michigan?
Well, I really like Michigan in this one. I think they got a good offense, a good defense, but most importantly, I think those Georgia boys are going to be a little bit confused by the khakis and spend most of the game wondering how they could possibly turn those into jorts. So I'll take Michigan in this one, 31, and Georgia 21.
Claus, you have a great New Year's Day, all right?
Okay.
Talk to Mignata with Hail Varsity.
A Hurrdat Media Production.